Okay, awesome. It looks like we're live. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming on this fireside chat with intern makers and Mo. Mo, it'll be very valuable for our community to learn about your experience and how they can land their dream internship or job. Intern Makers truly believes that stories can change lives, and we hope that someone out there can listen to your story and be inspired by it. And I can't imagine anyone better to close this fireside chat series for us. It's the last one, bittersweet. But yeah, to kick us off, could you just go ahead and share more about your story and background?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Mo Ramos. I'm a diversity and inclusion program manager here at Adobe. And really just my story and my background. So first things first, I was born in Mexico, so I am an immigrant. I was immigrated here with my mom and my sister when I was about 3 years old. So my entire life has been predominantly here in the U.S., although I did have many opportunities to go visit back home. And home for me is San Diego. So at first I grew up, really in a stable household in the beginning of my life in Oceanside, California. And then as I got older and as the financial crisis hit in 2007 and 2008, my family really did suffer from it. Not only did we have to move, but we moved to this really rural town out in Borrego Springs, California, where because of the financial crisis, first the house was really cheap, and then after that, jobs in that community really were scarce. And so my family, my parents had to actually work 2 hours away from me and my sister, and they would stay with my mom and my sister or my grandmother. And so it was just me and my sister growing up. From middle school all the way until I graduated in high school. And I'd see my parents maybe once a week, twice a week, maybe every other week. When it really came down to me and my sister getting older, we started to see our parents less and less. So there's a couple of things that, really taught me that really challenged me in a way was one, growing up by myself, really having to kind of raise myself, navigate the space. Not only was I an immigrant, but I also am a first generation college student. And just first generation in general, in a lot of the spaces that I've had to occupy or that I've sought out to occupy. So going through high school, it was just a really just challenging time there. Again, because my parents were pretty far away, there were moments where me and my sister really just struggled, not only with our academics, but also struggled just growing up. We struggled with financially as well. So even though my parents worked 2 hours away, there were moments where we'd come home and either the water was off, lights were off. And so it was a really underprivileged background that in my community, it wasn't that unique. It was something actually very common in my community, unfortunately. But I had a lot of pivotal people in my life, like my coaches, some of my teachers really did take the time to not only see something in me, but see something in a lot of students and say, you have so much potential. Have you thought about going to college? Have you thought about pursuing higher education? And that was something that, again, I wasn't really getting at home. So hearing it from my teacher's perspective was really unique. And so really from that moment on, having people believe in me was something that I was just really impressed by or impacted by, really, because from that moment on, I was like, oh, I can make it to college and I can really do anything. And so I started to go on the academic track of going to a 4-year university over a 2-year university. And that's when I finally decided to go to UC San Diego. So I went to school at UC San Diego. I was a double major in communications and international studies, thought that I was going to go into marketing and business development. And really that worked out for maybe a few months and stumbled my way into recruiting. So that's a little bit about me and my story of just kind of who I am, where I'm from, and kind of caught up to now.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing more about your story with us. And it's cool to mention how you said that you studied something in college that's, in a sense, doesn't necessarily like I guess like correlate with like what you're doing now, right? So like it's okay and like it's fine to do like a career change if anyone that's listening or tuning in is like considering that or like changing your major. Like the amount of times that that happens is kind of endless, right?
I feel like there's very few just roles or very few industries that you have to have that specific major. Majors now are so irrelevant in our careers that it's most of the time I'm just like, man, I stress about what my major was for nothing. And to say that I'm not applying anything that I learned from my degree is definitely a lie, but I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not in marketing, I'm not in communications, I'm not in an international disciplinary. So for students who, are really struggling with what major do I choose, I really recommend choose a major that you're actually interested in when it comes to the content, when it comes to what you're learning, because if you're not interested in it, then it's going to be really hard to, again, spend the next 4 years, 3 years, 2 years studying that content. So really, again, pick something that you're really interested in, because when it comes to your professional career, unless you're going to be a doctor or you're really going to be focused in the finance industry or go into computer science and SWE, again, those are very focused industries and very focused disciplines. Unless you're in one of those areas and you're more on the kind of business creative side, then for me, it's just like choose what you're passionate about, because that's what you're going to excel at, rather than choosing something that you think is going to work but not really work. So definitely my recommendation for all students to just go with something that you're passionate with.
Yeah, thanks for those tips. And the next question here is, what made you want to pursue a role in the tech industry?
Yeah, so I really didn't I stumbled into this industry. I stumbled into recruiting. So my first job out of college was in business development and marketing. And as much as I enjoyed it, it was a lot of just behind the scenes work. I was, not speaking to many people and just kind of reading documents all day, trying to put together some portfolios. So I worked for an architecture firm at the time, and I was putting together these requests for proposals, so RFPs, RFQs. And the cool thing about it was that I was actually working with Adobe products. So I was working with Adobe InDesign at the time, and Photoshop and Illustrator. So that I really got to enjoy, because again, I had that in graphic design experience. So I really did enjoy that. But there were a lot of things that I was not enjoying. Again, being in a cubicle all day, not getting to speak to people, really just didn't inspire me. So at the time, I was also going through a lot of family just emergencies. And so it was like a really kind of testament time for me, where I was just like, is this really what I want to do? Do I want to start pursuing something different? What can I pursue? And so it was a lot of time for me to reflect. And I started to get on the phone with all of my friends and try to understand, what are you up to? What are you doing now that we're out of college? What's your first job look like? Are you enjoying it? What's your day-to-day look like? And that was really helpful for me, because one of my really good friends that I spoke to, he's in HR, and he was just like, I love HR. This is great. And I was like, oh no, but isn't HR not that appealing? Or isn't that the industry that, you go to when you're in trouble, or go to when you're getting in trouble? So I was like, oh, I don't really know if I like HR. And then I talked to another good friend who mentioned that she's in recruiting, and she was like, oh, it's so fun. You're getting people's jobs. This is something that I think you'd be really good at. And so she was working at the agency that I ended up working at, and she not only recommended me, but I immediately got a phone call and was kind of sold. It was a competitive environment. It was something that I knew I would be good at, just because, again, I really loved talking to people. looking and reflecting back to my high school days and my college days, I was always someone who was hyperly involved in either student government, being an orientation leader, being an RA, being in a sorority, being a part of the UCSD rec classes. So I was just always someone with a lot of resources and loved connecting people with those resources, and really just liked being really the introducer. And so because of that, I really did think that recruiting was going to be a really good role for me. And so I really stumbled again into the role just based off of my conversation with a friend. And then the way I got into Adobe, because the agency that I was at really served a lot of different clients from across different industries. And Adobe just hit me up on LinkedIn, and I was definitely not going to decline a conversation from Adobe. Not only was I a super user of their products in a way that I had used their products since they were boxed softwares, so kind of aging myself there. But I have been with them literally since my freshman year of high school. So definitely a long time that I've been using their products. That it was definitely a dream when they reached out saying, "Hey, are you interested in having a conversation about recruiting?" And once I had that conversation, I never really looked back.
It's kind of funny the way that life works, right? And how you ended up in tech and in Adobe, but I'm like a huge believer that like what's meant for you like will cross your path. So I mean, you seem to be loving like what you do at Adobe, and I know you have also had a lot of success there. You were just recently promoted, right?
Yeah, so I absolutely love my job. I love my job. I love this company. I truly believe that things work out the way they're supposed to. Um, and it's so funny that before even Adobe reached out and contacted me, I was having this conversation with a really good coworker and friend of mine from the agency that I was working at. And we're at this coffee shop during our lunchtime, and we're having this existential crisis moment where, is this really what we want to do? What are you thinking? How are you feeling? And I look out the window and I see the California Academy of Arts, and they have this big Creative Cloud poster. And I was like, it would be a really great company to work for, Adobe. And literally a month later or so, they reach out to me. Through my interview process, it was such genuine conversations throughout each step of the way. And for the experience side of the house, our interviews are pretty rigorous. I think I had 13 interviews total. Yeah.
Oh
including a project that I had to submit. And that's definitely not for interns or university. That your interview experience is much shorter. But from an experience standpoint, at the time, I had like 13 interviews. I was also contacted for a role that I'm not currently in. I was contacted for being a talent scout for our ACS team, which was for sales. And throughout my conversations all the way up until my final round, they really got asked questions that were getting to know me as a person rather than who are you as a candidate and what can you do for us. And so those are two different conversations that I noticed as I was interviewing with other companies, because once I interviewed or updated my resume for Adobe, I just sent it out to multiple tech companies. I was like, oh, Adobe can recognize me and my worth, and maybe other tech companies can too. So, but that was something that I really noticed with Adobe, which is one of the reasons why I ended up choosing Adobe. But one of the things a few things that I was saying in my interview was, first, I was really interested in, again, being a resource to people. That has not changed. I love being a resource to someone and connecting the dots and providing them with opportunities. I love developing people. I love coaching. I like being coached too. So I really do believe in talent development. I like early talent, especially because of my background. Having to really struggle through things and kind of navigate my own way, I really think that there's an opportunity for large enterprise companies to really make an impression on young talent and really think past what internship experience that they have and really give them an opportunity and guide them through that. I think that's so important because there's many people in my situation, even today, who aren't getting the same opportunities because they probably didn't have an internship or because they, had to work their way through college just like I did. So I love young talent. I love diversity and inclusion. Obviously, I'm a woman and I identify as a woman, and I'm also a Latina. So I think that having a diverse team is so important to the success of a company and its products. And then I also mentioned a personal goal of mine is to travel. I had been on a plane maybe twice at the time, and I had such large aspirations to travel in general. And because I mentioned those things in my interview, they actually introduced university recruiting to me. So they, in a way, handed me my dream job because they're like, based off of the things that you're passionate about, excited about, we really think that rather than doing sales recruiting, we think that university recruiting is going to be a much better opportunity for you. And they were 100% right. I had been a talent scout for 6 months, and then I got converted because it was a contract opportunity and then promoted as a talent partner. Since then, I was recruiting for the non-tech side of the house. So I recruited HR, finance, sales, not sales, legal. But as a scout, I recruited for the sales side as well, and consulting and our customer success. And then as a talent partner, I was really exposed to multiple areas of the business. So I got to recruit DX for a little bit, which is our digital marketing cloud. I got to recruit research, which is our PhD research organization. So I've been really blessed in a way to have that really big landscape bird eye view of everything that we recruit here at Adobe. So I was promoted. I've been promoted twice as a talent partner, and then I just did get recently promoted into, again, my dream job as a diversity and inclusion program manager, which is a team that I helped create, which is so exciting. I mean, it is due to unfortunate reasons that our team was created, but the impact that our team is going to have is going to be endless, just because, again, we're focused on diversity, inclusion, we're focused on diversity-focused institutions, partnerships, and programs. So there's a lot of opportunity that we have as a university diversity TA team that I think we just have not tapped into. So I'm excited about the change that my team is about to make.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love Emily's comment here. She says, like, there's so much power and beauty through diversity, and seriously couldn't agree more. Kind of changing topics a little bit. What does life outside of work look like for you? Like, how do you, like, distress and just get away from work?
Yeah, great question. So life outside of work really revolves around two big things. So food. I love food so much. And working out and just being active. I think right now it's so easy to, especially, because we're working from home, where work is not separated anymore from your home life. It's literally in your bedroom. I'm in my bedroom. So I don't really get the separation of like going into an office and coming into my room and kind of decompressing. So I have really made it a big point to stay active. That's the number one thing that I need to do. I notice if I don't work out, I get a little grouchy. I have bad knees, so I get a little achy. I feel like a grandma sometimes. But I run every Sunday without fail. I run my 8 miles throughout the week. I do a little things here and there. Behind me, as you can see, I have my Peloton. And, big shout out to Adobe because they enhanced our wellness reimbursement benefit, which I'm so thankful for, because that allowed me to buy my Apple Watch, and just keep track of like my move goals. So I make sure that I move every single day, even if it's just a walk, even if it's just walking around the apartment. I just make sure that I move and get out of my seat, because I think it's, again, such an such an easy thing to forget about is taking care of your body as you're trying to take care of so many other things right now.
No, yeah. I have to ask, what's your favorite food? Because I also just love food. I'm actually I'm doing like a 20 or a 6 week, like 20-pound fitness challenge. So I'm
Mhm.
stuck with just like chicken and like rice, but still falling in love with the process, of course. But before this challenge, I would just eat like anything and everything.
Yeah, so okay, I'm kind of bad. So when it comes to snacks, I love chips. I love hot Cheetos, I love Doritos, I love all chips. And that's kind of like my go-to snack. So I really do work out so I can stay somewhat fit. Because if I let my eating habits take over without me doing anything active, I probably would not be able to do the things that I do. So chips are always on deck in my house with hot sauce. But when it comes to regular food, so I am pescatarian. I did make the switch about a year and a half ago. And so I eat a lot of spinach, Brussels sprouts. Trader Joe's is so bomb for anything kind of vegetarian. So there's these black bean burgers that I love. There's what's it called? These little chicken strips that they have that they're chickenless tenders, and they're so good. They're like my go-to. They taste like chicken nuggets, but they're not. So those are like my go-tos right now. But if I'm home with my family, oh my gosh, it's ceviche. I love ceviche. It's my favorite food.
I love mariscos too. I'm actually having some later with
Mm.
my dad. That's all aside, but I'm getting hungry now.
No, me too.
So moving on to the next topic here. Now that we're in this pandemic still, like how have you adapted to the virtual environment, and are there any like tips for either interns or new grads or just students that may still be in school?
Yeah, so this is a really great question, and it's not easy. I'm just gonna say it is not an easy task to transition from being live in school to a virtual environment. And so for any of you who are struggling through this now, know that I hear you, I see you, I feel for you, but I promise it'll get better. And for me, for example, I traveled for work. So every time I traveled, it was kind of working in a virtual environment that it was a little bit of a struggle. And I just actually never really worked from home prior to COVID. If I wasn't traveling, then I was in the office. So it was a big challenge for me to transition to a fully remote environment. Not only did we have to, at the time too, I was actually transitioned into another role. So I was also promoted once again at that time. In February, I was promoted to support a new scope. That was a new challenge for me because I'm like, I've never worked with the business. I don't know the candidates. I don't know the hiring managers. Like, I don't know anything really. And not only are we going remote, but our intern program for Adobe also went global because a lot of our students, and especially in the organization that I was supporting, was global. And so it was a complete brand new set of processes, set of roles that I, would typically turn over to my manager and say like, hey, like, what about this? What about that? Like, question for this, and then get my answers immediately rather than kind of, again, waiting to Slack her or waiting to see her in a meeting. So that adjustment was really interesting, and not also having for me, I feel like I'm actually better now that because I'm not having, coffee chats, I'm not running to the cafeteria, that I'm actually able to focus more. But I do still miss the opportunity to just have casual conversations and get your answers answered quickly. So an alternative that Adobe did, which really helped us, was really kind of retrained us on how to use Slack. And also, my team actually did coffee chats every single week And we would also have daily stand-ups where we would still see each other in a group setting, and then also have an opportunity to see and ask each other questions in another setting too. That was every other week. So that was really nice to really kind of transition into the virtual world, because again, at the beginning, there was a lot that was being changed. So it was nice that we actually had these daily stand-ups, just so then we can either see each other, have nothing to talk about, but at least see each other, talk about business, and again, maybe provide some insight or clarity into something that someone's struggling with or that I'm struggling with. So that really helped. And so for students, I really recommend just really foster those relationships that are important to you right now, whether it's with your TA, whether it's with your professors, whether it's with your classmates, your group project. If you're in an internship, it's your manager, your buddy, your team. Ask for time, ask for that additional time, ask for that 15-minute, ask for that daily stand-up if you need it, because again, just having that face-to-face interaction, there's no other replacement for it at all. So I highly recommend that, if you're in that situation, really do take initiative in fostering those relationships and creating those opportunities for genuine conversations, just because, email and Slack is great, but getting a 15-minute coffee chat on someone's calendar to, just see one another and get your questions answered, is a lot more valuable.
Yeah, I love that advice. And thanks for sharing all of that. This is actually one of my favorite questions to ask, which is, if you could give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
If I could give advice to my younger self, it would be, this is going to sound so funny, do your homework. Do the homework. And I'm not saying do the homework of your class assignment. It's like going on above and beyond and doing the extra steps. So not only because I was just like in a small town that I just wasn't really exposed to a lot of resources, but one thing that I do wish that I did was actually take the time and look and seek out for those resources and really break beyond what I thought was attainable. So it's, finding out about different partnerships or scholarships that could have supported me. So for example, there's GEM Consortium, where it's the graduate education for minorities. There's MLT, there's the consortium, there's the SEO, there's Hispanic Scholarship Foundation. There's so many resources out in the world that I wish that I did my homework as a younger me to get to where I was, because I think that would have definitely helped me along the way. So definitely do my homework. I also wish that I took more risks. So I think that's such a cheesy thing to say, especially I hear all the time, take risks. But there's little things that you can do in being fearless or taking risk. And I think those go hand in hand. And so one thing that I actually am proud that I did do this is that I went to UCSB even when I was told not to by one of my teachers. That was a fearless moment that I took a big risk. I moved to San Francisco even when I had like $600 in my pocket. That was a big risk, but I wish I did more of those, because I think I definitely would have maybe sped this process up sooner, or maybe had other opportunities in line. So those would be my recommendations. Do the extra homework, take the extra mile, do the research, and definitely, be fearless in taking risks.
Yeah, and out of curiosity, are you thinking about pursuing like higher or going back to school? Just because you mentioned like MLT, and then you mentioned another graduate resource.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about going and getting my MBA. I think as many people, continue to pursue their education. For me, since I'm already, in my role, the biggest determiners or factors for me pursuing my MBA is whether or not it'll enhance my career, or and I know it'll enhance my career, but in what ways? And am I able to get there without an MBA? I'm not a fan of school. I've never been one to enjoy homework, enjoy studying. And it really just stems back to my high school experience. I just didn't really have the best academic curriculum or structure. So for me, college was really difficult. And that's not saying because I'm, not intelligent. It's just because the curriculum in my high school was actually below the bar to even be academically successful at UCSD. So I really actually had to, no matter what, I had to put double the time to understand something, to complete a task. So for me, academically, I'm in a way holding myself back, but if there's an opportunity for me to go get my MBA, it really just depends on whether or not it'll impact my career for the future. That won't allow me to do it without pursuing my MBA.
Gotcha. Well, that's awesome to hear that you are considering it, and best of luck if you do.
Thanks.
If anyone has questions, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll be getting to those pretty quickly, and just open it up to Q&A. But before we do that, is there any tips that you may have for those who may want to apply to your current work position, like skills to learn and develop, or any advice there?
Yeah, so for recruiting, I'll do recruiting and I'll do program management. So for recruiting, I highly recommend getting into, if you're still in school, getting into a program, getting into a student club, become your recruitment chair. I think that'll also really help understand like what that looks like. If you're looking for internship opportunities, I would really look at any HR opportunities that you're interested in. Again, HR is just not what we traditionally hear about HR. So again, getting involved doing through your recruitment chair, or go through an agency. I loved my agency experience. They really teach you to be scrappy. They teach you to be resourceful, and they teach you kind of the ins and outs of recruiting. And that's really when I look back at my recruiting experience, I really attribute a lot of my success to how I was trained at an agency. Because again, they really teach you to be scrappy, resourceful when it comes to recruiting. And the skills that you need for recruiting is you really need to have a lot of soft skills. You need to understand, be almost an individualist. And that's not being like, I like being a one person rather than a team environment. No, it means that you can actually serve your stakeholder and tailor your stakeholder's needs to what that person needs. And so when you think about who's your stakeholders as a recruiter, you're thinking about the hiring manager and you're thinking about the candidate. And so really understanding, what does this candidate need? What are their interests? What are their skill sets? Does that align to what the hiring manager is looking for, what the team's needs and skill sets are? So having kind of that individualist mindset for your stakeholders is really important. And also being metric and data driven as a recruiter is highly important. So if you are competitive, and if you again like talking to people and you like being a resource to a person, then recruiting is definitely an industry or role that I really recommend for you. For program management, it's a little bit of kind of that both, but it's very similar to project management. So if you've been the lead of a school project, if you've been kind of the driver for events at your student club, whether it's a like business association, a cultural center, sorority or fraternity, if you've been a leader in one of those types of groups and you've drove a project from start to finish, in a way that's project management, in a way that's program management. because you're really, again, understanding what are the tasks at hand, when are these deliverables due by, what do I need to do to complete this XYZ. And so really kind of staying that organized and staying and keeping that time management is what really has made me successful in this role. There's a lot of differences when it comes to, being a flag planter and being someone who thinks of these grand ideas, comes up with the concepts of, what these projects or events or product is going to look like. And then there's a road builder, understanding how you're going to get there, is really kind of what project management is not only being the flag planter of something, but also being the road builder to something. And being resourceful too, because as a program manager, project manager, you work with multiple stakeholders, whether they're internal or external. You're working with a lot of parties, so you also have to know how to either be the bridge to those parties and be able to communicate. If you're in a technical role, you need to understand how to speak that technical language and transfer it over to the marketers. If you're in a role like mine, you're speaking to external programs and partnerships, and you're also transferring that knowledge to the university talent team. So you also have to be really good, again, at soft skills and translating that data or translating that information to ensure that we're still hitting our milestones and still being metric driven, because everything we do at any company, it has to see some return of investment. And so again, having that return mindset, okay, what's the health of this program? Do we see any growth, is something that is super important.
Yeah, those were all wonderful. I was like taking notes on the side. Do you have any tips now for anyone that wants to get into Adobe, or do you also know if Adobe is offering opportunities right now for interns or new grads, or in the future?
Yeah, so Adobe is still hiring right now. We're in the thick of it. Please, please, please go to our career page, which is adobe.com/careers/university. So for tips on getting recognized at Adobe. So if you've already applied, please be patient with us. We check all of our applications on a rolling basis. But the best way to get recognized by any company is not only tailoring your resume, which I know everyone has heard these recommendations before, but really, it really does help. And when I say do the homework, Mo, it really means do the homework and actually tailor your resume to that specific job description. Read the job description, read through what those requirements are, highlight your resume, and you can either highlight it by bolding it, you can tailor it by changing the language to really highlight that one skill set or that one tool or that stack that you use specifically for all you SWE people. Really, if you see, looking for Java, C++, HTML, highlight, really move around your resume and highlight all of the projects that you did either at an internship or an academic project that you use C++, Java, and HTML. Because again, when recruiters are looking through for role, it takes about 6 seconds for us to tell whether or not you're a good complement to the role that we're pursuing you for. So really, really, really tailor your resume to that specific job description, because each role is very unique, especially at a company like Adobe, because each of our products is so unique and so niche that they use different stacks for each of the roles, especially if you're, again, going for SWE. And same thing for our non-tech roles. We really look for people who, are truly passionate about the roles that they're pursuing. So if you're still trying to figure that out, please go network, please go talk to people, because that's what really deters a lot of recruiters. If we see someone who's applying for a marketing role, but they've been in finance, they've been, in sales, and now they've had a marketing role, it tells us, hey, you're kind of, you haven't minimized your track yet to really know whether or not marketing is the place for you. When we compare you to a candidate who has done social media marketing, campaign marketing, they're in the digital marketing club. And so it's really, it's okay if you're, bounced around a little bit, but when we compare these two candidates, we're definitely going to go for someone who has shown true interest in the industry space work that they do. So if you're someone who has bounced around or who's changed their major or, who's been on the finance track and you're like, I had my one internship at finance and I really didn't like it, then a way that you can really turn around your resume is, again, get involved on campus. That is the best thing you can do because a company like Adobe loves seeing people involved on campus. That means that, and it really resonates to our Adobe leadership capabilities, which is be a leader, be focused, and be creative. And so if you're involved on campus, we're seeing that you're an initiator, that you're leading out on campus, that you're involved because you align to also to our core values. We like to see people who are not only involved in that student group, but also have taken on a responsibility as a vice president, chair of recruiting, or VP of finance, or a VP of marketing. So we love seeing those opportunities as well. We like seeing you be a collaborator. So if you are in the suite industry and you, if you're in the suite industry and you have shared your work on GitHub, we love seeing that because not only are you sharing your work, but you're also open to feedback from other people. And that's a great way to, show more work without even going past that one page that's so important, because another big thing that really turns off recruiters is anything more than one page. 2 pages, okay, but anything past 2 pages, we're like, okay, I don't have time for this, next. So when really, again, getting recognized, that leadership experience or involvement experience within your community, again, whether that's on campus, in a nonprofit, in a student group, in a startup that you're creating, in your garden club, in your book club. That's another thing that we really love to see, especially at the creative company. We love to see little snippets of who you are, again, past the candidate, because that tells us, Elsa really loves to cook, or Elsa really loves to give back to her community. I think for me, I put at the time, because I was still running, I was training for half marathons. I put half marathon training. And so one of my interviewers actually read that and he was just like, oh, I'm currently, training for the XYZ half. Like, how are you going? What's your mileage? What's your pace? And so it allowed us to have a conversation that had nothing to do with the role or the work, but actually, again, got an opportunity to talk about our interests and passions. So I love to see when people are dancers and they link me to their YouTube channel. I love to see when people are aspiring influencers and sends me to their Instagram or their drawing and sends me to their sketches. I know that I'm not the only recruiter that takes the time to actually go to the hyperlinks that you give us, but it's just sharing that little bit about you, again, letting us know past who you are as a candidate is also something that I think really gets recognized, especially at a company like Adobe.
I think it's also just like a great way to like bring your like full and like authentic self, right? Like even at the beginning, before interviews even start, like just showing like who you really are. Because I feel like in the sense, like that's what makes you different, right? Like that's your differentiator from every other like candidate that's applying. And a follow-up here is how I guess what's the game changer when you have a referral versus when you don't?
In what ways? Could you clarify or elaborate your question a little bit?
Yeah, so I actually saw it in the chat, and Chelsea was wondering if she needs to have a referral like when applying to roles.
Yeah, so it definitely helps, but Adobe is very much an equal opportunity employer. So as much as we value referrals, referrals go through the same exact process as our normal applicants. So we really do ensure that all referrals do get reviewed, but again, it helps in a way because it allows us to know, hey, they have a connection to Adobe. We want to understand who is that connection. Is it personal or professional? And really, my biggest rule of thumb for referrals is if you've worked with them, in some sort of capacity, definitely ask for the referral, because not only can they speak to your, like, you as a teammate, you as a report, you as their manager, you as a different team but still in the work environment, then that's super helpful. If you just know them from a third party or as a friend, I'm not the biggest fan of those referrals, to be honest, because they don't know your work ethic. They don't know your deliverables. They don't know how you can really manage. And when we do go to the person who referred you, we do read what their relationship to you was. So, when you're asking about referrals, also think about how that's going to reflect on you. Just because, again, we do take into account kind of what that relationship was, whether it was personal or professional. And I'm not saying it doesn't help, but I do think that, it if it was a professional relationship, and it could have been someone that you really didn't speak to, but that you worked with them in some sort of capacity, my recommendation is still reach out to that person. Just be a little informal first and saying, like, hey Mo, I'm really interested in learning more about Adobe. I know that we really didn't get a chance to work with one another, but I'd love to hear your experience at Adobe first and understand whether or not it's a company that I'd like to work at. And so then, first break the ice by, again, having some sort of informal coffee chat, get to know the company, get to know what Mo's doing, get to know what her experience is, see if she can introduce you to someone else within the company who's in the role that you want to be in. Or at least give you the name, just so then you can potentially reach out if they don't feel comfortable in introducing you. And and then ask, hey Mo, like, thank you so much for the time, just having this conversation with me. I really appreciate it. Would you mind if you referred me for this opportunity? And give them that ID number and give them the opportunity that you want to be referred to, because that way at least you're telling Mo that you're taking the steps that you want to get into the company. And also during that coffee chat, that also gives you an opportunity to share with Mo everything you've been able to accomplish in the time that you could have worked together. So you can say, I this project, I learned this new language, I increase my portfolio number percentage. So that way you're also able to share with that person who you're connecting with, again, all of your accomplishments, which makes them feel more confident in referring you into that process.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for all of those tips there. I know we're a little bit past time. I don't want to be considerate of your time. We have a few other questions in the chat,
yes,
but
I'm good.
Okay, sweet. So John is wondering, any tips on overcoming failure and imposter syndrome?
Yes. I truly believe in words of affirmation. It is something that, again, hearing my background already, I've really struggled with imposter syndrome. Day one, when I got into Adobe, I was just blown away with how intelligent these people are, how creative they are, dynamic, and really the biggest thing that I had to start doing was saying, you deserve to be here. You are worth being here. Your ideas and the impact that you're going to have is going to happen. There's a steep learning curve into any role that you go into, especially in the tech industry. But words of affirmation was like my number one too. And I always set up goals for myself of my brand. And I'm like, what do you want to be known for? And for me, when I first started at Adobe, I, thinking back to who I am as a person, I was just like, no one is going to work as hard as I am. So I want to be known as a person who is really hardworking, really dependable, and really just an overall, like, I'm saying athlete, but overall utility player, meaning that I was willing to help wherever I can. And so because I set those 3 goals for myself, I made sure that I was the first one in the office, the last one in the office. If someone needed help, I always raised my hand. I always made sure that I finished all my projects on time. And again, I may not have had the most creative ideas or the most, innovative ideas, but I made sure that I did that. As long as I hit my goals of being like the most hardworking, the most dependable, the biggest utility player, that everything else will fall into place. And so, and one thing that you can really do when you're battling with imposter syndrome is, really continuing to get feedback on your growth and understanding, is this where I think I am, or is this really where I am? Because there's those two different things of, you can perceive yourself in one way, but others can perceive you in a different way. So I continually ask for feedback across my team. And what in asking for feedback, what I heard, one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard, which was, because I said, I don't know if I deserve a seat at this table. And they're like, whose table is this? They're like, this table doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to all of us, because we as a people are the greatest assets in any company. And when she told me that, I was just astounded by her confidence. And so for me, I was like, wow, like, not only, so this table belongs to me. I deserve a seat at the table. I also, again, words of affirmation, I started to believe more and more that my ideas are worth listening to. My thoughts are worth hearing. But that goes on for other people too, is that, you also want to make sure that people who may be battling with imposter syndrome, maybe they're also someone who can be a little bit more timid. So, and as I started to get more confident with myself, I also made sure to look around the table and notice, especially for people of color or minorities, and say, hey, if it was me on next to me, it'd be like, hey, Mo, did you have any ideas about that? What are your thoughts? Because as you start to, overcome your own imposter syndrome, we as minorities or people of color, we have to also uplift others and start to ask, what are your thoughts, to give them the opportunity to speak out and kind of break that trend of imposter syndrome too. So those are some tips on how I am breaking through it. But as you continue to break through it, please uplift others too, because we're all battling it. We continue
to. 100 to that. I don't want to butcher her name. I think it's Chantel. She's wondering if you have any tips or words of encouragement for seniors who are looking for full-time roles.
Yes. So for anyone who's looking for a full-time role, especially right now, network. It is the most important thing that you can do. Work your way backwards. So if you're looking at roles and opportunities that you see are maybe attractive, go Google or go find on LinkedIn what those words, or who's in that specific role at that specific company. So if you're looking for a diversity and inclusion program manager at Adobe opportunity, Google program manager at Adobe, and you'll probably start to see people pop up, and message those people and say, hey, I aspire to be you. Can I have 15 minutes of your time to understand what your role entails? And then once you start to have those coffee chats, again, ask them if they're can introduce you into that recruiter, or ask, if there's anyone else in that network of yours that they should understand or know. But I think that's the biggest thing that you can do, is one, network. And this is I'm an athlete at heart, so you missed all the shots that you don't take. So anyone that you don't reach out to, you're just already going to get a no. But at least if you take the shot and say, like, hey, and reach out to these 10 people, I promise you at least one person's going to respond to you. And I did that before I even got into my role. I networked with a lot of people to see, is being a program manager what I want to do, and is diversity the industry or the space that I want to be in. So first, network. The second thing that I recommend you do is continue to apply to all opportunities that you find interesting. And again, tailor your resume to those opportunities that you find interesting. And go ask people to review your resume. Go to your career center. Schedule some time with a friend who you know is good at resume writing or good at writing in general. As you start to build your relationships with external people and within your network or people within the role that you aspire to be in, ask them to review your resume. That's the biggest thing that I really recommend you do, is get your resume reviewed by someone, because feedback is a gift and it'll propel you to the next level. I promise.
Love that. I'm not sure if you recruited ever for SWE roles, but any skills that folks should learn or foster to be prepared for SWE intern roles?
Yes. So it really just depends on the role that you're looking for. But the number one thing that I highly recommend, especially at Adobe, if you don't have Java, it's really going to be tough. It's really going to be tough unless you find an opportunity that's not asking for Java. And again, depending on front end, back end, full stack, mobile developer, it really just depends on what you're looking for. But a lot of our roles do have Java, C++. Again, if you're depending on if you're front end or back end, JavaScript, and there are other roles that are a little bit more, again, either iOS focused or machine learning focused. So again, really read the job descriptions, and those are a great way, especially if you're still early on in your academic career and pursuing an internship. Start looking at job descriptions that are university grad opportunities or full-time opportunities, and those will even tell you the skill sets that are needed for that specific role, that you should start building those skill sets. So if you see Java on a job description that you really do like, start to take Java classes, start to work on projects on GitHub, because those will really help you, again, build those skill sets that you really need. The job descriptions really do tell you a lot.
UN is wondering, what do you love most about working at Adobe as a program manager? Oh, I love this question.
Yeah, so for me, I love the opportunity to be external facing and internal facing. So I love that my stakeholders really range from, again, the university talent team to different business units. So I really get a ton of visibility from across the organization. So not only in our own department, but I actually get exposure into multiple other departments. And I also love that I get to work with external partners like MLT, GEM, Women in Technology, Grace Hopper, Afrotech. So I love that I get to, again, be external facing. Another thing that I really love about my role is that it's very goal oriented. Again, the athlete in me, I love being competitive and making sure that I'm like increasing our goals year after year. So I love making sure that I'm hitting my targets, that I'm exceeding my expectations and goals that I set for myself. So that's another thing that I really enjoy.
That's awesome. It looks like this is our last question here. Do you ever see software engineers transition to program management roles?
I do. I actually see a lot of SWE transition into a lot of other roles. So the most common ones that I see is not program manager, is actually technical consulting and product marketing manager, or product managers and program managers. So product managers is probably the first transition that I see, and then consulting is the second, and program managers is the third. So really the transition is actually not too bad. You go away from really coding the majority of your time to actually leading maybe the launch of a specific product or the launch of a specific code piece. So if you have the skill set of the business and a technical side, it actually really does help. So if you're looking to transition, don't worry about it. It really does help if you have that technical skill set and that technical knowledge landscape to be able to translate that over, again, to maybe our marketing team, our search engine optimization team, the branding team. So really, if you have those soft skills and you have those technical skills, you'll definitely stand out.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Mo, for sharing your story with us, all of your helpful and wonderful tips. I was taking so many notes on the side. And to those watching live, we hope this was very helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Intermakers or Mo, and we'll do our best to help you out. And yeah, I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. We hope to continue this Fireside Chat series in the new year. And yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks also for having me. Thank you everyone for joining.